Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Colette and Chris for their kind invitation to speak at your annual national conference. Hopefully, it won't be too long before we are all able to meet in person. The title of your conference is very timely: Community Development Beyond Recovery to Renewal, with the aim of bringing people together to drive forward empowerment, social justice, and democratic participation, all core values at the heart of the Scottish Government. During the pandemic, we saw how local people and communities across Scotland played a critical role in supporting the most vulnerable in society. Community development brings people together to understand and take action on the issues that matter most to them, a key ingredient in swift community responses based on local knowledge and assets. This approach will continue to have an important role as we go beyond recovery to renewal. Community development sits in my portfolio of responsibility as Minister for Public Finance, Planning and Community Wealth. I am proud that the Scottish Government supports community development by funding CDAS alongside the Scottish Community Development Network and the International Association for Community Development, ensuring we benefit from those who represent networks of organisations, practitioners and international learning. My colleague Jamie Hepburn, Minister for Higher and Further Education, Youth Employment and Training, has portfolio responsibility for adult learning and youth work. In practice, there is a significant overlap, and no doubt you will help inform the developing adult learning strategy, youth work strategy, and a lifelong learning framework. I encourage you all to continue to work in partnership so that we can make the most of the opportunities and knowledge that comes from working closely together. Earlier this month, the First Minister launched the Programme for Government, A Fairer, Greener Scotland, which sets out the actions that we will take in the coming year and beyond. One of those many actions is to review the Community Empowerment Act 6 years on from its inception in 2015. This builds on the central call from the Social Renewal Advisory Board for the public sector to give more control to people and communities over the decisions that affect their lives. I know that many of you here today will have contributed to the board's works and informed their recommendations. You will also be aware of the impressive scaling up of participatory budgeting in Scotland. This has gone from a handful of events to over 120,000 people having a direct say in how more than £6.6 million has been dispersed. Securing climate justice is an important part of your conference today and a key commitment in our programme for government. We will work across government and beyond to ensure that as many people as possible across Scotland are part of the just transition conversation. We will explore how participatory budgeting can help us do that, and your support will be invaluable. Crucially, for any transition to be just, we must tackle inequality alongside tackling the climate crisis. Community development principles will play a key role in doing that with our communities. I share your belief at CDAS that when we give people more control over power and resources, communities can make the changes that matter most to them, and that empowered communities make for a more inclusive and equal society. With the Local Governance Review, we are working to achieve just that. Many CDAS members were involved in the first phase of national engagement, when people overwhelmingly told us they wanted more control over decisions that affect them most. Therefore, in this Parliament, we will not only conclude the review, but bring forward a local democracy bill to devolve more decisions and resources down to more local spheres of democratic governance. The next phase of the review will continue joint working between Scottish Government, COSLA and communities to explore how best to achieve this and pinpoint exactly what powers and resources will be needed to improve outcomes together. I'd encourage you all to take a look at the Democracy Matters material we published in March. This outlined how ambitious new community decision-making arrangements could be made to work in practice. Now, I'm honoured to be the First Minister in the Scottish Government to have community wealth in my title. Our community wealth building model offers an additional way in which we can make transformative change by establishing a means for local public and private sector partners to work together to build and retain more wealth in local communities. Seen through the community wealth building lens, The economy is something that all communities in Scotland should have a more direct and active stake in. I invite everyone in the sector to play a full role as we build community wealth within our local economies while contributing to a national well-being economy. Broader community ownership is central to that system change and how we can create an economy that tackles poverty and entrenched inequality. As we move toward a community wealth building bill, we want you to help enable more local communities and people to own, have a stake in, access and benefit from the wealth our economy generates. Just as we supported economies and communities during the pandemic, we will support renewal with a place-based investment programme, accelerating our shared ambitions for place, 20-minute neighbourhoods, town centre action and community-led generation. Backed with a further £17 million in 2021-22, the Empowering Communities programme helps support the capacity, resilience and sustainability of our communities, enabling local people and communities to identify the issues and priorities important to them, make decisions on what they need to make change happen, and shape their future. I recently heard a perfect example of this at an online event. A local Loch Ness community took on a derelict car park building through asset transfer legislation and turned it from an eyesore into a thriving community hub. This enabled them to create a new social enterprise, welcome more visitors, create jobs and upgrade facilities. I'm sharing this story with you as I was inspired to hear that the community group managed to raise £110,000 in 1 month through Community Shares Scotland. 300 people bought a share, which helped raise much needed funding to make the initiative a success. I'm delighted to see these two relatively new policies in Scotland, asset transfer and community shares, complementing each other. This shows the real value of the engagement and empowerment of our communities. The Christie Commission remains our guiding star for reform. Its principles remain as relevant now as when it reported 10 years ago. A focus on prevention, integration and empowerment to ensure our public services are sustainable, improve outcomes and reduce inequalities for people in Scotland. The pandemic has hit communities already experiencing disadvantage particularly hard. We have witnessed great examples of reform in action in the way that public services, third and private sector, volunteers and local communities have come together quickly and with conviction to support people in need throughout the COVID crisis. Much of this has been driven through dynamic local community planning. As my colleague, the Deputy First Minister, has made clear, our public services now need to build on this by working together with the third sector and communities on COVID recovery and longer-standing priorities, such as tackling the climate emergency and working towards child poverty targets. This means walking alongside our most disadvantaged communities and helping them move forward in holistic and seamless ways around what matters most to these communities. CDAS can also help in more practical ways. Your monthly cross-cutting bulletin is an important link to your many subscribers. We hope it will continue to promote the recently redeveloped Communities Channel Scotland website, a one-stop shop and key source of information for communities. The website also hosts the Social Impact Pledge, which helps bring public sector organisations closer to their communities by making public commitments. Pledges can be as practical as offering a free meeting space for community organisations, offering work experience for young people, or paid voluntary time for staff to support the community. These are just a few examples. Public authorities are being encouraged to sign up to the Social Impact Pledge, and I urge you to make use of the pledges which should appear on the site in the coming weeks and months. In conclusion, people and communities have risen to the challenge of the past 18 months. A key lesson is that we need to continue working and supporting communities to successfully take more control over decisions and resources that matter to them. The Scottish Government has a long-standing and successful relationship with CDAS. You are an important partner in bringing together organisations who are making a difference in people's lives through a community development approach. I thank you for all of your efforts and I wish you the very best for the rest of your conference today.